Well, hello there. This is Charles the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. Welcome to another episode of Quick Wins, and today I'm going to demonstrate something that I've actually wanted to do for some time, which is to do the analysis on my Chessnut Pro board. Works really well with chess.com through Chess Connect, and when people ask me what's my favorite electronic chess board, I actually always come back to the Chessnut Pro. Tournament size board, tournament size pieces, just wooden, classical look, nothing, gimmicky about it, but I can also customize my own pieces because I can buy the chips and install them into my own wooden pieces. These are pieces which I've customized before on my channel, the Austrian coffee house set. How appropriate, because this is a Vienna Gambit game. So let's start, but before I do, Christmas time, don't miss out on your copy of Become a Chess Assassin, especially if you want to know romantic openings like the Vienna Gambit. All right, let's move on. So, Vienna Gambit starts with the Vienna game. E4, E5, and Knight C3. Now, black most commonly will respond with the King's Knight, and that would be the Falkbeer. In this game, they play this knight, the Queen's Knight, which is equally good, Knight to C6, the Max Lange defense. Historically, and this is the way Gotham Chess recommends playing the Vienna, I played bishop to c4, makes a lot of sense. The bishop places pressure on the f7 pawn. The problem with this, though, is that black can respond simply with a two knights approach. And this pulls the game into potentially a Berlin-Vienna hybrid or a plain Italian four knights type approach. And the reason I play a Vienna game is because I don't want to play an Italian. So I no longer play bishop to c4. So let's move these pieces back. Let's go back to moves. There we go. Ooh, hold on. There we go. And the way to play a more forcing game is what I did in this game, which is the Max Lange Vienna Gambit. F4. And here it's forcing because black really has only one good move, which is to capture the pawn and accept the gambit, which is kind of the opposite to the Falkbeer or the standard Vienna Gambit. Now, in this game, black was perhaps not expecting this, a little bit skittish, so they decided to add an extra attacker with the bishop to d6. That's an inaccuracy. I played quite simply, just with the knight. Now, in this position, they now finally take, which is, I guess that's their best move, and very simply, I now push the d-pawn to d4, and potentially, we can attack either the bishop or the knight with a further pawn advance. Now, in this position, black plays something very, very common in the Max Lange Vienna Gambit. After they accepted, it just kind of looks like a King's Gambit, is that they try to defend that pawn with the G pawn, with G5. That's not a wrong move, but here we've got some really cool options. Against G5, what I really like doing and really like thinking, it's the theme, is we're going to sacrifice this King's Knight. But to get the knight into that position, of course, is defended by the queen, we need to first push H4. We want to put the knight here, and then we're potentially going to sacrifice it on the F7 square. Now, that's the idea. Now, sometimes that's not necessarily the best move, but it almost, it's generally not a bad move. It's a very romantic style to play. Now, in this position, I think black decided, better leave that alone. They probably should just push their g-pawn forward. Instead, they decided to try to pin that knight. That's okay. One of the things in the Vienna, it's quite often all right to trade the Queen's Knight for the bishop, because after captures, you end up with a very powerful center of pawns. So here, I just captured because my goal is to put pressure and to sacrifice that knight. So now they capture with the bishop, and I take back. And you can see what I mean here. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got a really, really powerful center of pawns there, and this knight's forward movement is constrained. All right, now what's next? They decide to give my knight a kick. That's not a mistake, but here I sacrifice the knight, and chess.com, the analytic engine, rated that as a brilliant move. So here they capture with the king. King will now always be sort of stuck on that side of the board. Our goal is to now launch a massive attack onto Black's king stuck onto the king side. Now here, there's actually a number of things that can be done. We can develop the bishop to potentially the c4 square now immediately with check, but of course that can get blocked with their pawn. I think bishop to d3 might actually be the best move, potentially then, setting up an attack after a forward motion of the e-pawn. I decided to go straight up with the attack. It's not the most accurate, but potentially we're still winning here. Queen to h5 with a check. King really now needs to go onto e7. It's a little bit hard to see. They've brought it back to the back rank, which ended up being a bit of an inaccuracy, bit of a mistake. And the goal now is that we really want to launch an attack. So firstly, let's get rid of that pawn. We don't want that there. Now we've got a fully open f-file, and potentially really winning once we move this bishop out of the way and a castle. So that potentially is really good. Interesting move here now by Black. They decide to bring their queen out with an attack on that bishop. And here I thought for quite a while. Well, as much as you can think about in a relatively rapid game, I decided to eventually capture their pawn, move that bishop out of the attack to queen, and realized that that actually wasn't necessary. Let's say I play bishop to c4, which I think is the best move here, and they take my bishop with the queen. Unfortunately, fully open f-file, the queen and king on the same file, and basically that is a pin, and that's the queen pin you saw on the thumbnail for this video. So that's the idea of why that bishop is basically immortal. But now let's go back a couple of moves. So let's say they didn't do that. Let's move everything back. So in this game, however, I didn't quite see that tactic at this move. So I decided to, get my bishop out of the attack by capturing the pawn on c7. In this position, Black decides to trap the bishop and also open the light square diagonal for their bishop. I guess that makes sense. By this point, I recognize the fully open f-file. Now, bishop, I think, to c4 is still the best move, but I decided to play this psychologically. What do I mean by that? Now, if I move the bishop to c4, Black is going to see bishop and queen looking at the f7 square. So their eye is going to turn back to their side of the board, and they're going to notice king and queen potentially, or they're more likely to, there. That's going to be a problem. So I didn't want to do that. Let's move the bishop back. So instead, I decided to play a much more limited move, just bishop to the e2 square, so that their eye is potentially on my side of the board, and it worked. They didn't notice. They decided to just develop their bishop, but now you could see what's coming, right? A rook to f8, and it's a very lovely pin, and immediately Black resigned into position. Emotional damage. Good game. GG.